Welcome to Surviving Corona, brought to you by Heal You. This is a podcast that I didn't expect to be making. It was born out of the new reality that we live in with the coronavirus. I've always been what you would call a seeker, always been very interested in the deeper world around us. It started from a really young age, but especially over the last 3 or 4 years, it really intensified. It intensified when I got knocked off my path with panic disorder. So at that time I had 3 kids under 3, just coming off the back of 3 kids under 2, and I was running very, very hard. And then suddenly out of the blue, I found myself getting daily full-blown panic attacks. When it first hit me, it was about, I think I probably had about 6 or 7 of them in a row, and it lasted for quite a few hours. It was a really, really traumatic experience. And from that point on, I was in survival mode. I was literally living 5 minutes to 5 minutes to 5 minutes, because if you've ever had a full-blown panic attack, you'll know that it's like you're dying. Like you instantly, all the blood rushes from you. It's just horrible. So everything else in our life at that time kind of got put on hold, and priority number 1 was for me to get my mental health back. And, you know, in retrospect, my husband was telling me that he felt that, I might have to get hospitalized. I was terrified because I could feel that too. I was feeling like my kids were going to have to visit me in hospital, and it was really confusing to me at the time because I had no idea why it was happening. And that's really the scare, that sort of added to the fear and the terror, because in the old days when I was a party person, I would have the occasional panic attack, I always understood why. It's because I had too big a night, not enough sleep, all that jazz. But this was coming at that point when it was hitting me, I hadn't drank in many years, like I hadn't done anything. So it was really strange, and it was just unusual, and I couldn't figure it out. So straight away I started getting blood tests. I wanted to find out if my blood sugar was correct, or my hormones and all that kind of business, just to see if I was heading towards sort of hypoglycemia. So I needed the doctors to do that. And I've never really, doctors aren't usually my first point of call when it comes to any kind of medical issue. It'll usually be my naturopath or my homeopathy lady or spiritual, mystical medicine ladies that I have that I'm connected to. I've got a plethora of other sources that I'll go to before a doctor. But in this case, I needed a doctor because I wanted to run tests. And when I was speaking to one of them, she kept asking me about what antidepressants that I had used in the past were called, and I really couldn't recall them. Didn't know what they were called. And she kept sort of going back to that, and I looked at her and I said, look, I really don't know what they were called. What does it matter anyway? I'm not going back on medication. And she looked at me with such sincerity, and I'm not being judgmental here, because I understand that that's how that field works. She said, if things don't change, Jodie, you will have no choice. So basically she was telling me that I would have no choice but to go on pharmaceutical medication, which is a bit scary because a lot of people would believe that. They would think, oh, that's my only choice. And listen, I'm not saying that there is no place for antidepressants or that type of medicine, because there absolutely is, 100%. But she had to dug deep enough in my case, because I had been on it. And she could see that in my records. I'd been on it for a really long time. But she never asked me, how did it go for me? Like the fact is, it never made me feel better. In fact, it made me feel worse. So that was what drove my decision to say that I wasn't going to go on that again, because I had already learned that that's not the answer for me personally. And I needed a personalized solution. So I went away from that appointment and started my own investigation. And this story actually is sort of what birthed Heal You, which is what led me to eventually becoming a self-healing mentor. But I'm just giving a little background now because I want to explain why I get a lot of downloads of information from source about what's happening around us at the moment, particularly with the coronavirus. And I want to explain where it comes from and how it was born, just so you know, and you can have faith in what I'm interpreting for you. So I walked out of there and decided, okay, so this is going to have to be, for me. Now, this is going to be I need to take the reins of this. I need to project manage my own healing journey. It started when my beautiful auntie sent me a link to Super Soul Sundays by Oprah Winfrey. This is a podcast. So Oprah Winfrey every week was interviewing a master in the self-healing space. And it could be anyone from Eckhart Tolle to Marianne Williamson, the guy who wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul. She could be interviewing Michael Beckwith, who started the Agape Spiritual Center. Joel Osteen, who runs the largest, he's a huge Christian evangelist in America. Just a really wide variation of people, but all kind of talking about the same thing, about connection to source, connection to the universe, connection to God, connection to self, self-love, worthiness, all of that stuff. And that's where my journey began. I started to reprogram my mind. So I would have a podcast going in my ear all the time. It would be in the car. I mean, at that time I had 3 little kids and I was really, really busy running the house. I've got a business as well, skincare business that was running. So I really didn't have a lot of time. And I mentioned that because a lot of people say, how do you get the time to listen to all that? Because you're doing 2 things at once. And I'd put it in my ears when I'm getting ready. So I get out of the shower, I'm getting ready, I'm listening to it. I'm listening to it when I'm cooking, when I'm cleaning, when I'm driving, when I'm going to bed. If I wake up in the middle of the night and I can't sleep, it's just there. Basically what I was doing, I was reprogramming my mind. So I was listening to people. A lot of these teachers all had like a obstacle to overcome or an incident that sort of shifted them, sort of like a catalyst, kind of like what happened to me. So they'll talk about where they were, what happened to them, and how they overcame. So that sort of formula is repeated over and over again by all different types of people who did a very similar journey, but in different ways. And this happened, I did this for years. And then, of course, as that was going on, I started to integrate meditation, and there's some really great tools that you can start to learn meditation. And if you're interested, I can private message me and I'll give you some tips. Yoga started coming into it, reading different books that I would hear. Like if I heard an author talk about their book and it really resonated for me, I would grab it and I'd start reading it. So that is how I began my self-healing journey. It was all about reprogramming my mind and my thoughts and capturing my thoughts. Eckhart Tolle was actually a huge part of that. He wrote The Power of Now and A New Earth. Absolute game changer. Absolute game changer. I would say to anybody who needs any type of work on their mind, they want to shift their negative thought patterns, he is your guy. Private message me again if you want me to send you links and some tools on how to get started and deepen your relationship or begin your relationship with Eckhart Tolle, because absolutely 100% he is your guy. Right, so how does all that fit into this Surviving Coronavirus podcast? How does that all fit in? Well, it's basically just to explain to you where I'm getting my information from and how varied it is. So I'm listening to a very diverse selection of information source. So you're going anywhere from Christian faith so I'm listening to people like Joel Osteen, who, as I mentioned before, is one of the largest American evangelists. Listening to Sadhguru from India, who's the number 1 Indian guru. He's amazing. Oh, I just love Sadhguru. Listening to, obviously, all the people that Oprah is interviewing, which gives you a massive broad range of your more commercial type spiritual concepts. I like a little bit of Goop. I'm also listening to really out there concepts like people who are channeling Saint Germain and interdimensional beings and, believing that they're speaking straight to source. I'm really dedicated to Medical Medium, who says he's speaking to a spirit who apparently sits at the feet of God, and his name is Compassion. I'm listening to David Icke, who has been writing books about conspiracy for decades. This guy is intense, and he has been sort of talking about the conspiracy world. I don't really like the word. I sort of stumble when I use the word conspiracy, because I actually did what I called conspiracy theory training many, many years ago, which was me jumping into that world very, very deeply for a number of years. And I'll tell you, like, conspiracy is not really the right word. It's kind of fact, but that's another story. So I won't go into that. And there are reasons why I'm not 100% connected to that solely, because I feel like you really have to have, your hand in many different areas of information, and just bogging down on the one, which is the conspiracy, which can be quite dark, in fact is quite dark, that alone is not going to give you the answers that you need. There's plenty more things that I could speak about here. Dr. Sue Morton, she is amazing. She's written this book called The Energy Codes, and she teaches you how to unblock your energy. Oh, Dr. Joe Dispenza, my goodness, like, he's a hero. Like, this guy healed his back with his mind. He is the leading specialist in teaching people to creatively manifest their life. Like, he wrote a book called Becoming Supernatural, and that is aptly made, because if you read that book, you literally find out how to become supernatural. You become Merlin. You become a master at creating magic in your life. Then, of course, I've got my own personal gurus that I work with. I work with people from Monaco, from Lebanon, from England, all people who are in touch with the other side, if lack of a better word of describing that. Very mystical healing technologies and modalities. Each of the information sources that I'm aligning myself with and also working with have been completely vetted by me. It's been proven to be valid in some way. Otherwise, I wouldn't be aligning myself with it. I wouldn't be sharing information about it with you or anybody or any of my clients. I use these tools in helping my clients in their self-healing journey. And of course, that is because I use them in my own self-healing journey. I'm what you say, a seeker. I'm obsessed with that whole world, the whole world of healing. And I'm sort of really into just general spiritualism in general, what's on the other side, the deeper world around us, the whole thing. And I'm at the point now where I can absolutely interpret what's going on in a really magical way. I'm getting downloads of information from source now, and I'm sharing them with you. That's what this podcast is all about. There's no real major agenda. I'm not compiling them or crafting them in a way that's overthinking them. I'm just walking around, I'm getting the insight, I'll record it and I'll upload it. And for some people, I hope that you get something out of it. It's changing every day, as is our world, our new reality. How I'm feeling about it is changing every day. I'll look at what's happening through many different lenses, based on all the different lenses that I see life through all the information sources that I'm collating in myself. So hopefully you'll find something and you'll get something out of it. Private message me anytime if you've got any questions, or you want to find out a little bit more information about something I might touch on, or a book, or someone I've spoken about, or if you've got any particular problems or issues, I'll happily send you some links that I feel intuitively that will help you. And I suppose one thing I didn't mention throughout this introduction podcast is that intuition now is a massive part of how I do my healing. I'm also teaching a lot of my clients to tune into their own intuition, because I'm discovering that this is showing itself to be one of the main points to this whole new reality that we're living in, is to tune into self, listen, make decisions from the heart, and that's all very much aligned with your beautiful personal intuition. So that's it from me. Welcome to Surviving Corona from Heal You. I hope you enjoy the up and coming podcast. And like I said, if you need any help or got any questions, please send me a message and I'm here for you. Love you guys.